अल्लाह हमारी तमाम इबादत को, दुआओं को, whatever efforts we did in these 10 days, अल्लाह कबूल फरमाए। मैं अल्लाह सुब्हानहू तआला जो इरादे रखते थे हज करने का लेकिन ना कर पाए, अल्लाह पाक उनकी नीयत को कबूल करे। एंड दोज़ हू आर फिजिकली प्रेजेंट, अल्लाह सुब्हानहू तआला उनकी तमाम इबादत को कबूल करे और उनकी हज को कबूल करे। Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to do Hajj physically in person as well in the coming years as he plans. It's been is the best time for Asami Rabbil Alameen. Ishan, can you check this recording or not? Proceed. One of the most important reminders, mashallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had opportunity again this year to witness Hajj, the season of Hajj, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opportunity to celebrate Eid. What is this Eid about? It's why are we celebrating it? I discussed last week why and who we are celebrating these days for. But one of the things before I start to this topic, एक चीज हम लोगों के दिमाग में आती है when we know these repeated events every year, जो कि हमारे commonly जो है celebrate किए जाते हैं in terms of festival, culture and what not. So Eid basically हमारे लिए एक festivity बन गई है. We celebrate it every year, and every year we go to the masjid, Eid ki namaz padhte hain, the khutbah about Ibrahim alayhi salam and whatnot. But one thing we forget, when it's becomes so repeated, जो चीज़ दोबारा regular basis पे होती है ना, daily routine जैसा बन जाती है, so it's very hard to see why is it happening. So I'd like to remind myself and all of you that even though ये हमें repeated लगता है, like every day, every year, हम लोगों को सेम इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम की स्टोरी बताई जाती है, कैसे कुर्बानी दी उन्होंने. मोस्ट ऑफ अस नो इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम स्टोरी फ्रॉम आवर चाइल्डहुड. तो उनकी इवेंट्स जिंदगी में चल रहे थे, वो बार बार रिपीट होने की वजह से क्या होता है, इन दिस वी सेलिब्रेट हिज sacrifice and whatnot, but the purpose behind sacrifice we forget it. It happens a lot, and we are reminded by these events in terms of के you can move it, that's fine. The purpose of these events is to remind ourselves कि क्यों हो रहे हैं, of course, but repeated ayahs of these Quran and repeated events, उसके बाद होता क्या है, we get in this like, yeah, okay, he's gonna do it again, like Amir Bhai is gonna tell Ibrahim Salam story again in this khutbah, and the Imam discussed this in this khutbah, is gonna talk about this in khutbah, whereas of course the reminder, but the angle of viewing the story again and again is different. कि उसी स्टोरी को इस एंगल से भी देखा जा सकता है, इस एंगल से भी देख सकता है, और फिर उसको उसके एंगल से देखा जा सकता है. एवरीवन सिचुएशन इज डिफरेंट, वी आर ऑल क्रिएटेड एज ह्यूमन डिफरेंटली. तो हमारी जो सेम सिचुएशंस में जो उनको प्रेजेंट किया हमारे आर प्रॉफिट्स हु वेंट थ्रू डिफिकल्ट टाइम्स, including Ibrahim alayhi salam, and this is what the event of Eid al-Adha is about. It applies different to everyone's life. And मजे की बात ये is a deep discussion I was having with someone, I don't remember who, किसी ने बात कर रहा था. So there was something pointed out कि यार हम लोग जो रेगुलर जो इवेंट रोज का जो डेली रूटीन होता है ना हमारा, even though we go to same places again and again, like I go to 2990 every day, Ishan goes to Bellevue every day, we have assigned stores and whatnot, और फिर कुछ customers वही repeated भी आते हैं, but every time I experience with that person is different. Every time I enter the store, there's a different feeling every day. So this is subhanallah, Allah's the way we are created is we are in constant move. So these stories move along with our life too from the Quran, which is why Quran is a timeless lesson for all of us. हम जो बोलते हैं कुरान में blessings and it applies in this way in our everyone's life. It is moving along with the time, even though there's the argument presented that भाई कुरान जो 1500 साल पुरानी book है now 1400 something years, so it doesn't apply to my life anymore, so वो उस time के लोग अब हमारा apply नहीं होता. So that argument fails, and I presented you this argument before as well, that the reason why Quran is still a timeless lesson, and we have to go back to it again and again, is because just the feelings of the people doesn't change, with the emotions of the people doesn't change. The emotion of jealousy, hatred, killing each other, the emotions of anger, frustration, the emotion of sadness, depression, वो सब यूनिवर्सल जिंदगी भर रहेगा, इंसान की तख्लीक इसलिए हुई, इसी तरह हुई है. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one place to say about insan that they are weak, they are created weak. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the other hand also say they are created powerful. So Quran is my guide of how I'm gonna go through different emotions and how I'm gonna navigate through them to eventually become the insan Allah mentions as the best of his creation, and we have created the human in the best of forms. Now it's a bit off tangent to it, but my point was to remind all of us that the Quran stories जो हमें लगता है they're like the stories and they're repeated again and again. There every time every time I go deep down the study of the Quran, same repeated story of Ibrahim alayhi salam has a different lesson coming to it. And subhanallah, there happened to be just a couple of days ago when I was Surah Baqarah not Surah Baqarah, one of the stories I was within the tafsir of Surah Baqarah, एक story मुझे इब्राहिम अलैहि सलाम की पता चली, I never knew, and the angle of it was subhanallah amazing. I don't want to go there because of course off tangent. But again, same story, Ibrahim alayhi salam came with a different angle and how it applies in my life. I was like, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put so much wisdom in the Quran that that and the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions Surah Kahf, which we recite every Friday itself, that it's not even a drop in the ocean. You know, like needle को ocean में डालो और निकालो needle को, how many drops does it collect? Not even half it, even that even drops. So this is the wisdom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, and this is how much we get in this world, little bit. So these repeated stories are not that feel repeated, as has subhanallah so much wisdom that doesn't end. So this is why connecting with the Quran is so important every single day. And one thing is for sure, हमें कुरान की जरूरत पड़ेगी जिंदगी भर की. You know, like I gave example and khutbah again and again. जब कोई when there's a defect in a product, what you do is go through, for example, we sell phones every day. So phone में अगर problem होती है, so we have to go to a phone expert, and then phone expert not able to fix it, तो उसके manufacturer तक जाती है कहानी, and the manufacturer works on, they know what the problem is, so they fix it, right? Same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our creator. He knows in and out और हमारे जो अंदर की बाहर की जो चीजें हैं, he knows everything. This is why there's going to be a need for book always. Quran is always going to be there. We have to go back to the Quran. और कुरान ये नहीं है कि again I'd go back, सिर्फ कुरान blessings के लिए नहीं है. कुरान का सिर्फ पर्पस ये नहीं है कि आप उनको इसको repeated words अरबी में पढ़ते रहो and that's it. Because then the relation of the Quran with me and you is artificial. सिर्फ मैं blessings के लिए पढ़ा हूँ इसलिए. Then now from here it makes sense, right? कि I am repeating the Quran, reciting the Quran just to get blessing, right? I gave a whole khutbah about couple of weeks ago about how, I'm not saying you guys, you and I worship idols, but purpose of worshipping idols and other false gods is that they get benefit in this dunya. That's the main purpose. The reason behind idols exist. People worship other than Allah. It's because they think कि हमें दुनिया में फायदा हो जाएगा, इसलिए मैं करता हूँ. And of course our niyyah is not, as a Muslim, we don't recite Quran just for blessing in dunya, but it's also for akhirah. Allah will reward for that for sure. But that's not the primary reason Quran came for. Just recitation, no. Which is why when Sahaba Ikram when they pondered over the Quran and reflected on it, they changed the world. The change did not come from reciting the Quran in Arabic, but it came from understanding the Quran and applying their lives. So we will always have to go back to our what do I say? Our instruction manual. Our instruction manual is Quran, and we will always go back to it to get deeper understanding of how to navigate through this part of my life. So that's a little bit introductory topic. Now, one thing I'd like to start with, of course, Eid is about what? Eid is about Adha. Adha literally means like spilling the blood. So when it comes to sacrifice, our symbol is who, and why do we celebrate? Is Ibrahim alayhi salam. And this guy spent his life in service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. literally, and literally to the point कि अब उनके when he was called to ask to even sacrifice his son, he was ready to do it. And last week I talked about कि this guy जो इब्राहिम अलैहि सलाम जो थे, he was the reason why he became Ibrahim alayhi salam, because he eventually, when in his journey of understanding the world and recognizing Allah as his God, he started with asking questions. सवालात सवालात किसके बारे में पूछते पूछते हुए कि सूरज मेरा खुदा है, ये चांद मेरा खुदा है, तारे मेरे खुदा हैं. Eventually led to him कि there is nothing I can worship but Allah, the owner of all of these bodies that I'm trying to find God in. Which is why when he was, just to remind you, last week I talked about Ibrahim alayhi salam was able to conquer the fear of his family and his society, which is why he spoke up against the wrongdoing of his father, who was the idol creator, जो idol बनाते थे, and his nation. And when he was being thrown down in the fire, उनको फेंका जा रहा था, he was okay with it, because he believed in nothing will harm me. And then it came to his journey कि अब वो अपने he left his family in the desert, वो किया, and then he eventually it came to sacrificing his own son. He was ready to do that too, which is what we celebrate today, sacrifice. And subhanallah, Ibrahim alayhi salam is praying to Allah in Surah Ibrahim, verse number 34, which is the ayah I quoted today. And remember when Ibrahim alayhi salam said, "Oh my Rabb, make this city one of peace and security, and keep me and my sons from worshipping idols." इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम में इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम जो कि बचपन में क्या खुद जो है फिजिकली आइडल्स तोड़ चुके थे. ही इज प्रेइंग टू अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला कि अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला मुझे और मेरे इंक्लूडिंग हिमसेल्फ, मेरी औलाद को बुतों की पूजा करने से महफूज फरमाए. सो इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम डिड, even though it seemed like कि वो बुतों की पूजा की बात कर रहे थे physically, but of course he wasn't. He's talking about the worship of idols of ourselves and the society around us. That's what he was talking about. Ibrahim alayhi salam, being Ibrahim alayhi salam, is praying for for himself. To the point कि जब उन्होंने, this is after actually this part of the story when he prays, makes the dua, is after he's done with, he's about to basically establish Makkah as the Kaaba itself. उसके बाद ये दुआ कर रहे हैं. Imagine imagine the humility first of all. And also इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम के एक और इसमें हिस्सा very important. इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम जो है, when he of course he used to pray for a kid, but when he had a kid he was very old. He was very old. So to the point कि जब उनकी स्टोरी के बारे में जब उनको न्यूज़ दी गई कि जो है कि you are gonna have a kid, तो उनकी wife literally she laughed like, at this age I'm gonna have a kid. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, instead of being unthankful to Allah or being ungrateful to Allah कि अब उनको औलाद मिलने वाली, क्योंकि अब उनका टाइम जो वो लिमिटेड है in this दुनिया now. He is old, so the amount of time he has with his kid is very small. So one can complain, यार मैं तो काश मेरा बच्चा 30s में 20s में पैदा होता या early teenage में पैदा होता, so I would have spent good time with them and I would have spent I would have been more joyous. उनके साथ अच्छा टाइम गुजारता मैं, और उनको और उनकी कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग में उनकी हेल्प करता. बट नो, he prays that when अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह केबर इस्माइल जो आयत है उसमें he is being thankful to Allah कि अल्लाह आपने मुझे इस्माइल और इसहाक दिए. That's the humility. So of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna bless us in his own time, and that is gonna come a lot in after a lot of sacrifices. At times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses right away, but it could come after a lot of sacrifices. And maybe it's also possible we may not be able to witness in our lifetimes, हो सकता है, but the reward is not going anywhere. First of all, that reward is staying there, and we believe in that, and that's the whole purpose of our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as Muslims, as we celebrate, Muslims literally translate to one who submits, जो कि peace बोलते हैं, but peace comes from where? Submission. So that's the person. So Ibrahim alayhi salam has been told, he's been called as Muslim, and we are his followers. So as Muslims, and I mentioned you about the ayah about worshipping idols. The idols of today as a Muslim, हम लोगों के लिए हम लोग physically हो सकता है we won't worship other gods. We won't do like literally Jesus Christ के आगे खड़े होकर वो नहीं करेंगे हम जो है. But our challenge would be कि जो हमारे मेरे नफ्स के जो idols हैं, society के मेरे idols हैं, उनको follow ना करूँ. And the idols of myself are my own emotions, my own anger, my own lust, the things I desire for that are haram, the way I behave around my family, the way I use my money, जो मैं पैसे जहाँ से आ रहे हैं एक तो वो भी, और फिर जहाँ मैं खर्च कर रहा हूँ वो भी. These are idols of our today. So when we conquer those idols, then we are fulfilling the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And that's what this Eid is about, reminding ourselves that sacrifice, we may be physically sacrificing in जो physical sacrifice जो हम करते हैं, but that's actually a deeper reminder that एक और चीज amazing about physical sacrifice. When I used to be back in Pakistan, I used to hate Eid al-Adha. I'm saying that out loud. Why? Because the attachment I used to get with this animal was so intense, and I used to fall in love every Eid al-Adha. It's not because I used to hate it, but because I felt like my heart is gonna blow out with sacrificing the animal that I spent a few days with. Or हमेशा it was famous that okay, Amir sacrificed an animal, he's gonna cry now. तो मेरा आधे घंटे का सेशन होता था, पीछे आकर रोता था मैं, literally. And I used to do sacrifice myself. But I did realize one thing though, I'm not doing it for fun. I'm doing it for Allah. So my niyat was always clear. Even though I did not have the understanding, वो शायद the understanding level नहीं था. But as I go deeper and deeper in the Quran, understanding the journey, subhanallah, this physical sacrifice means the sacrifice of the things I have to do, sacrifice the things I love mainly. Well, physically, I loved that animal. Physically, I was sacrificing it, but emotionally, I was sacrificing it for the sake of Allah, even though my love for that thing is bigger. So the love of money, myself, I more and more, अब जब जितना time बढ़ता आ रहा है, people are going to have by self, what do you self care and उसके नाम पे, they start worshipping their own selves, and then if not that, worshipping what others follow, trends of the world, whatever is easier. The speaking up for a fellow brother is harder than just going what जो के दबाया जा रहा है, ऐसे किसी का मजाक उड़ाया जा रहा है for being a certain way, even though that person is Muslim. So it's easier to mock that person with that person. तो दूसरा एक किसी का मजाक उड़ा रहे किसी चीज के ऊपर, उसके ऊपर दबा के दूसरा वाला बंदा भी उसकी साइड दे, बजाय इसके उसको बोले कि जिसको, क्योंकि it's easier to mock the other person because he's not speaking out for his brother. तो speak out करना मुश्किल है. it happens a lot in our culture कि जो बुली हो रहा होता है, बुली को साथ दे के बुली को दबाया जाए, और जो बुली हो रहा है बजाय इसके बुली के लिए बोला जाए, बिकॉज वो फिर इसके साथ जो 10-15 लोग जो खड़े होंगे उस जो बुली करने वाले के साथ जो है वो उससे डर है. That's one example. Then what's going on in Palestine, Kashmir? It's easier to speak up for Israel in our current political situation in this country right now, in the US. But it's very hard to speak up for Palestine. This happened really. मैं सुबह एक वो देख रहा था video. Was this mayoral candidates की in New York? They were literally asking, going around, okay, do you which country you would like to visit other than US? 6-7 लोगों ने बोला कि Israel. But there's one guy who stood up and said, he was being political. He did not say he won't visit Israel, but he was using political statement. But literally the whole gang along with the one doing the auditing, that जो कि जज थे, वो उसके ऊपर चढ़ गए. तो इसका मतलब है आप कह रहे हैं कि आप इजराइल की विजिट नहीं करेंगे, you won't acknowledge Israel as a state of, as a country. This is what's going on. So 6-7 लोग जो थे, even though they could have just spoken out against the injustice, but because they know कि वो उनको position मिलने के लिए उनको वो वाली पोजीशन मिलने के लिए उनका साइड देनी पड़ेगी पैलेस्टाइन की, एंड दे पीपल विल गो अगेंस्ट हिम, तो उनके लिए मेरे पोजीशन मिलना आसान है अगर वो इसराइल की साइड दें. बट इफ समवन स्पीक्स अप देन ऑफ कोर्स द वोट्स आर गोना गो डाउन. So this is the battle we are in currently. Then the movements of LGBTQ and our subhanallah, our own Muslim people who are supporting LGBTQ ban countries, pretending like they are Americans. This is what's going on. So हमारी war जो idols की, they're not physical idols. It is the ideas basically that are floating around. So this is what we are told by the Ibrahim salam story, who literally physically also demolished the idols when he was small, and so powerful when to do it he was young. We're gonna face the challenges of the people around us. Societies will speak up, families will speak up, even families within Muslim families. Literally stories here and there जहाँ पे पूरी family who just believes, who are Muslim, but when their own kid or there someone in the family woke up and started wearing hijab, like अच्छा तुम hijab पे नहीं, why are you going so extremist? Why are you keeping this big beard now? Are you going to be extreme now? Because Islam is not uh, Islam is just about cultural practice, not to them. It's not about what you follow. The Quran पढ़ना शुरू कर दिया किसी ने, they speak up, मैं you're going to extremism now. These are Muslim people. Then within workers jealous of each other and all whatnot. So this is what the idol of ours are today. And subhanallah, I'll close with this. Then this morning, the Imam when he gave the khutbah was about Hujjat al-Wida. And I thought for a second, subhanallah, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his last sermon at the event of Hajj, most of the stuff was he talked about. I got a whole list of stuff. I don't have time to go through all of them, but I'll just mention quickly. In general, he spoke more about the rights of people and the rights of the rights of family, how you behave with people. To the point he mentions, I'll just mention this one thing that he mentioned about in the Khutbatul Wida. He says, he mentions about how the life of a person is sacred to Allah, more sacred to Allah than the Kaaba itself. This is what he mentions. And he mentioned about next about women, the rights of women to you. So it's more general about the rights of people than the physical ritual itself and the Kaaba itself. Imagine someone swearing to a Kaaba, in front of the Kaaba. What would we do? उसको मारने के लिए खड़े 10 लोग जो हैं, बोलेंगे ये तो आज तो क्या बोलते हैं हमारे उसमें वाजिबुल कत्ल, ये तो वाजिबुल कत्ल है, इसको मार दो. Imagine the person next to you who is a Muslim, who is a believer, who prays next to you. You finish the prayer and then go behind their back and talk bad about them when they're not present. And this is to the level of us today when we're standing in the store talking to each other about someone. We should be mindful. What are we going to say about my fellow believer जो मेरे साथ भी काम कर रहा था? To this level, we have to observe that. Okay, mashallah, we are very as an Indian Pakistani Muslim, we are very ritualistic. Ritual हम बड़े perfect follow करते हैं माशाल्लाह. Alhamdulillah, Allah कबूल करे उनको. But when it comes to observing one's own self and how we are behaving, is very hard. It's very hard to take to and to follow as well. So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all our sacrifices again, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our shortcomings if we have been among those people who violated the rights of others and ourselves.